I told Milan that I'm going to have to go fight for my freedom. So I joined the Union Army December the 22nd, 1863. Now some of you may know the colored boys couldn't fight until January 1, 1863, officially in the Union Army. But that was a proud day for me because I felt like I could go make a contribution for the freedom of my people. Now I had 3 sisters, Priscilla and Matilda and Evita, and I had a brother, and they all hated to see me go, but I had to go. And we would end up being stationed at a place called Sulphur Branch Trussell, not far from Athens, Alabama. We would come under attack by the forces led by Nathan Bedford Forrest, and you know, it was a high time that battle. In fact, it was during at that time that I was seriously injured. September 25th, 1864. I was carrying gunpowder to a gunner, and a shell exploded, and the percussion of it knocked me under the cannon. Now, if you look at this headstone here, it's got 2 cannons on it. 2 cannons would designate you as being part of the artillery. But I enlisted in Company B of the 111th Regiment of United States Colored Troops. In battle, soldiers are asked to do a lot of different things, so it doesn't matter what you were in battle, you did what you had to do. So again, I enlisted with Company B of the 111th. But when I was injured, I was helping the artillery. So they kind of got that mixed up a little bit. But I was injured, and you know, we didn't have to lose that battle. And in fact, when the white officer said, we're going to surrender, some of the colored boys cried because we felt we could win. And the truth is, we would later find that reinforcements were close by. This story has gone untold. But a few years ago, a lady by the name of Peggy Towns published a book, and she invited some of these boys here from Murfreesboro to come down, reenactors of the 13th United States Colored Troop. And I just happen to have a copy of that, and she put these boys on the covers. And this book, I'm going to give it to one of my kinfolks here. I think you need this book because it tells you the true story of what happened at Sulphur Trussell. Again, these old boys here on the cover, you may know one of them. They reenactors of the 13th, which is another story here. I'm going to present this to you. But we were forced to surrender. Being captured, I was taken to prison at Mobile.
Right.
They did put me up in what you could call it a hospital. It was an old cotton gin, and such as they would give care to injured enemy soldier, I did get some care. Some of the other friends of mine who were at Sulphur Trussell, I would see later on, some of them ended up being sent to Corinth, Mississippi. But subsequently, the Union forces did went out, and we were rescued, and I was brought back to Tennessee. I met up was a Jerry Cheers. Now Jerry, just like me, settled here and started raising a family, but we met up down at Harper's Ferry, and I was sure glad to see him. But I ended up in the hospital first in Wilson County, and then they brought me over to Murfreesboro, and there I recuperated. Of course, the war subsequently ended, and I was mustered out in 1866. I, along the way, met a lady later on by the name of Cheney. She's a fine woman, good woman. Cheney and I were married in 1873. You know, we had 10 children. We had 10 children. Almost a children every year I was married. Almost. And all my children, they was delivered by a lady named Rachel Orr. I think Rachel Orr got some people here today. She's a midwife. She delivered all my children. First one named George. Then it was Jenny, Eddie, Silver. Can't quite remember all that.
Benny, Mel.
She was a good woman.
Sam.
She had to be to have all these children. Miss Orr was a midwife. She delivered a lot of babies in the cemetery community. Life was hard in the cemetery community. But you know, it was no more harder than when, after all that work we did, after fighting for our government, for a few years later, be told that we had to move the same government that we fought for. That was hard to take. What could we do? I mentioned this morning that Cheney and I were married at the Missionary Baptist Church. I seen it on a piece of paper somebody had that earlier today. But we would tend to keep scratching out a living, and another real hard part is when the government told us that they can take our church. You know, they got, I think the Park Service probably got some pictures around from those churches. You can see the pictures. But they told us either we move those churches or they were going to burn them down. So some of the men in the cemetery community, we decided we weren't going to let them burn down our church. So we deconstructed the churches as much as we could and put them on wagons and rails and moved the churches. And I'm just so happy now that you folks are here to know this story, because one of those churches is still over there. Ebenezer Primitive Baptist Church. Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church fell down a few years ago. But we also had the Methodist Church. And did we have some high times in this church? We knew how to have church. Some of you heard the story of Mr. William Holland. Mr. Holland's wife sure could sing.
Oh, yes, she could.
Yes, her little name. She just sat over there and just sang them old spirituals that bring tears to your heart. I sure wish I could hear that lady sing today.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Woo!
I can still hear that. Get that. But we had good times. We didn't have a lot. In fact, my house probably wasn't worth no more than about $50. Set on the acre lot. But it was ours. And when you've been a slave all your life and something is yours, there's just something about it being yours. Man, we had good times. Miss Bowe earlier today talked about the good times and celebration, getting on the plane, going in the Murfreesboro and coming back.
Mm-hmm.
People loved each other then. We valued education. To the young people here, education is so important. Well, there are a lot of other stories out here, and I just appreciate the opportunity to share this with you. But there's something going on here about the Seneca community. I just need to tell you a little bit. This here fella on this book here, George Smith. Interesting story. About 15 years ago, he was in Ohio, and someone came over to his wife's house and said, "Oh, you from Murfreesboro? You know about them colored soldiers that came to Murfreesboro to join the Union?" He said, "No." So this fella goes home and he brings some papers back, and he's talking about black soldiers coming to Murfreesboro and joining the Union Army. That planted a seed in his mind. And it still burns today. Little did he know at that time that several years later, he'd be moved to form a re-enacting group called the 13th United States Colored Troop. And he would also find out that one of his patients was a descendant of Sanders Malone. And when she heard about him being reenacted, they struck a conversation, and she tells him about my grave out here. Well, I come out here, and this friend in Ohio, I get to talking about this grave. He says, "I'm gonna send and get you them papers." And I got a papers that thick, talk about Sanders Malone. Moving a little farther in the story, years later, the 13th would be asked to go down to Decatur, Alabama, to commemorate a soldier that's having a grave place, a new one. And there'd be a lady there named Peggy Towns. And Peggy Towns would talk about writing a book about the 111 of the Battle of Sulphur Trussell. This is her book. So it's like there's a spirit that wants to be told that will not die. And here you are today listening to me out here. I've been laying over here 112 years.
Amen.
I died in 1895. Cars run up and down this road. And it's so good to look at you today. Here you are, making a record with your mind. I just appreciate y'all letting me tell my story, and y'all have a good day. I could use a new headstone.
Well, I watched that one off a couple of years ago, probably the first time it's had about than probably 100 years. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, was that?
Thank you.
Anybody got any questions?